Welcome to Your Mom. Your Mom Podcast. Your Mom's Podcast.
This isn't any podcast. This is your mother's podcast.
My Mom's Podcast.
Nah, dude, she's your mom.
With Ashley Allison and Lisa McCaffrey.
Your mom is a podcast.
Shut up, dude.
Your mom is back. Bonus episode, Lisa. We haven't done too many of these.
Not too many at all. Mm-hmm. No, I'm excited. This is one right up my alley.
It is. And I'm just going to give you the floor. So Ashley Adamson, Lisa McCaffrey, back with you. And we've got a topic near and dear to your heart. Yep. You talk about health and wellness all the time. And I feel like I'm able to take one iota of all these little tips and things that you give me. And I'm like, man, one of these days when I just pause, I'm actually going to do all the stuff that Lisa says that I should be doing.
I only do it because I'm 80 million years old. So I have to do it. That's the difference. I'm not
well, you look great for 80 million
anymore.
You're hottest 80 million year old that I know for sure.
Hottest over 50 podcaster on your mom there. That's
No, but I think that this is going to be a great episode for no matter where you are, in your life, whether you're a parent or not, a young person, an older person. I think the conversation that we're having today and the guest who we have on, who we're going to introduce in just one second. Yeah. So excited to talk to her. She's absolutely amazing. So Fountain Life is kind of the company, and I'm going to ask you before we kind of lay into what exactly it is that they do, and the it's aspirational work that they're doing from everything that I know about it, and you read their mission and kind of understand what they're doing. But explain to me how you found out about Fountain Life and how you encountered them, and kind of just a little background before we bring our guest on.
Yeah, well, once again, I guess all my revelations the last couple of years have happened while I was driving to Greeley. Long story short, I read a lot of articles about health and wellness, I'm over 50 now. So I'm, trying to stay fit and whatnot. And I'm trying to age correctly. It's, age so that my kids don't have to take care of me too much. And I can just, be independent and healthy. So every article I read referred to this book called Life Force by Tony Robbins. I had never met Tony Robbins, never read a Tony Robbins. I knew that he was an inspirational speaker or whatnot. Other than that, I knew nothing about him, but all of these articles kept referring to this book. So I got it on tape, and while driving to Greeley, I listened to it. And he started talking about this place called Fountain of Life that I was in awe of. It's basically, you go in and you get tested up, down, left, and right. Nothing hurts, by the way, so don't be just deterred from that. But you get tested almost like pre-screening to figure out if you have any precondition diseases or any preconditions that you can be aware of, and stop right there. Hopefully, stop in the tracks. Or if you know of something, it's obviously it's early on, then you can take steps to have whatever it is not progress. But I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is just so amazing. And they can, what I loved about it is I was reading in the book, they're sometimes simple as taking a certain vitamin that you might be depleted in, that literally can help you and make you feel better. And nutritional changes. I was obsessed with the idea. So anyway, we have the chief medical officer on today, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm going to pick her brain, poor thing. So, and I have a revelation that I need to talk to her about.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, yes. And I think let's also lay out too, their mission. And again, it's aspirational, it's high-minded. I love everything about the work they're doing, but it's verbatim off their website: to transform the current healthcare system into one that is both proactive and data-driven, enabling us to boost longevity and catch and treat illnesses earlier than ever before. So it's what you just said, Lisa, but in a
nice, smart way, not
like a one sentence. I probably should have just read that, but
yeah, there you go.
We're not the experts, but thankfully we have someone here who absolutely is an expert, as you mentioned, Dr. Helen Messier, our guest today, down in Lake Nona, Florida. First of all, I'm going to give all of your credentials, but just welcome and thank you for being on Your Mom. We really appreciate you staying up a little bit later, your time, to hang out with us today.
So awesome to be here with you. Thank you, guys. Excited to talk about this mission with you.
We did, and we got a lot to talk about. And you've been on this journey for a while, and I know Fountain Life, I think you were telling us, officially launched about 2 years ago. But real quick, and tell me, make sure that I get all this right. So you've got your Bachelor of Science your honors in genetics, and a PhD in molecular immunology from the University of Alberta. So you're from Canada?
I am.
Originally. Love it. That's why you're so nice. That's why you're so warm and delightful. And then your postdoctoral studies you did at La Jolla Institute for Allergy and Immunology in San Diego. And then you also have your MD from the University of Calgary, board certified in family medicine. It goes on and on and on. But I think what's really interesting is that from a doctor perspective, and I guess I'll just open it up to you and sort of ask you, how did, in your journey in medicine, did you come to a place where you said, hey, I want to be more aspirational. I want to think about not just treating symptoms, but I want to get to the root of it. Like, how did you arrive to kind of the work you're doing today?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's funny, a lot of people come to this realization after having a health issue themselves. I didn't. I actually, went through science, chose to go into medicine because I wanted to take all that amazing scientific knowledge that I was learning in the lab and actually make a difference rather than, publish a paper and have it sit on a shelf for, someone to eventually find, if ever. And so I went into medicine and I got out into practice in primary care and realized that 80% of what I saw was chronic disease. And, it's an epidemic of chronic disease. And that is what you see in really primary care. And I realized that the tools that I had been taught in med school weren't actually making an impact on that chronic disease. I could take their symptoms away for a while, but I wasn't really impacting the progression of that disease, and it would continue. And so I really went, there's got to be something else. And I went back into the literature, because I was used to that in the scientific world, and went, wow, there's a lot of information here that they never taught me in med school. Why don't we know and use this stuff? And that really got me into what I call the field of translational medicine. And really, what is that? It's taking what we know in the scientific world and actually applying it in the clinical world in real time. Now, typically that translational gap is around 15 to 20 years, even today.
Wow.
By the time we know something scientifically and actually try to apply it clinically or medically, it's still that long. And so I started kind of reinventing the wheel and going, wow, these people I see with chronic disease, and there's those patients that taught you along the way, right? The ones that they've been everywhere and no one had an answer for them. And I would go back, it's like, well, let's try this. There's a paper that could, this might help, and let's look at that. And I realized that I just needed better toolkits. And so really started, you get a reputation, you start seeing harder and harder cases, first of all, and needing more and more tools to actually do something. So I really just started doing all the omics, right? So that's genomics, right? I was the very first person to actually, well, not the first, but one of the first people to sequence my own genome. That was back when I paid $10,000 for it. Now you can do it in $100. But, just starting to collect that kind of.
Was that the spit test, the Geno one?
Yeah. So now you
literally spit in a
saliva test and you can send it off. Yeah.
It's an easy test, is my point. That's what I was trying to say. You just literally spit in a beaker,
exactly.
and you fill it up a little bit.
The DNA that's in every cell of your body, and in your cheek cells, you can get it from any cell in your body. It'll be the same DNA, and just using metabolomics, proteomics, looking at all the metabolites, proteins. Anyway, all of that being said, I really started delving deep into that and realizing that we're not going to make an impact on chronic disease unless we actually go much further upstream. By the time that we identify a disease, by the time it's symptomatic, that's really late. Right? We have to go way further upstream and look at that, not only early disease, catch it very early when it's way easier to do something about, but even before that, when we start to look at those dysfunctions that are happening in the body that over time result in disease. And so the same toolkit, looking at those dysfunctions, can actually help reverse chronic disease and also prevent it. And so that was sort of how I got into this. And it got me into the whole world of what we call functional medicine. I realized I wasn't the only doctor that thought that way, although for a while I thought I was.
You felt like it, I'm sure.
Felt like it. And we're able to actually, now there's a lot more doctors. There are not as many as we'd like yet, but that are starting to think this way. And it's so important, and that's really what got me through a series of many steps and doing this in many different iterations. Eventually ended up at Fountain Life, which I think is where we're really going to move the needle in this whole conversation around healthcare.
Why do you think I mean, it's shocking to me. I hear you describe this and it makes perfect sense. And why we wouldn't try to treat something or pre-screen or do something so that we get ahead of it. Why do you think that you're one of a very few select people?
Yeah,
in the
we're not taught that in med school.
Yeah.
Right. You guys are, it seems in med school, everybody's so specialized.
Mm-hmm.
They don't take into account the whole body and how whatever part of your body relates to everywhere else. Whereas this at Fountain Life, they test they test your heart, they test your brain, they test your bones. And I just thought it was just fascinating, because I do believe it's all related. Like every part of your body is.
Yeah, your hand doesn't exist separate from the rest of your body. Your brain doesn't exist separate from the rest of your body. If you have inflammation in one part of your body, you have it everywhere, right? So what you're describing is what we call a systems biology approach, right? Everything is connected. And what we've done in medicine up to now is we've sort of segregated a person into these, what we call organ system diagnoses, right? Or organ systems. So if you have a rash, you go see the dermatologist. If you have something, problem with your gut, you go see the gastroenterologist.
Right. You have kidney.
But, the same inflammation that might be causing the rash could be causing all sorts of other things too. So because we're so separated, what we do is just treat the symptoms of that particular thing at the time. Now, by the time you wait for symptoms to occur, it's really late. And so, for example, 70% of people who have heart attacks have no symptoms before the heart attack, right?
Wow.
70%, but how do we screen for that? Well, we'll test your cholesterol. Well, it turns out that 70% of those people that have heart attacks have normal cholesterol. So that's not necessarily the answer that's going to predict who's going to get a heart attack. So if you go, we're talking about moms and parents on this podcast, atherosclerosis or the whole process of cardiovascular disease starts in teenagers. It starts really early. So if you do autopsies on, teenagers because they died in a car accident or for some other reason, you see the beginnings of atherosclerosis in their arteries.
Right. And a lot of it's, I learned too, it's not all health, your lifestyle. It's a lot of it's inherited as well. Like it's a
combination of both. Right. Absolutely. It's always, some people are definitely more susceptible. So yes, if you have a family history, it's probably
all the more reason to get checked out.
But it's so common, right?
Right.
Disease is an example, still the biggest killer. Every 30 seconds, someone has a heart attack. Yeah. Just imagine how many people have had heart attacks on the time we've been talking.
I know.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's
when you put it that way.
And so sudden, it's like just so, shocking and sudden because they haven't tested. They don't realize they're susceptible. So,
and it's not, it is sudden, but if you look for it, you can find it.
Right.
And I think that's the key is finding it before you get the heart attack, going way earlier.
Yeah.
And so let's just say you test somebody, you sequence somebody, and it comes up that they are at a risk for having heart disease or heart attack. What then are the preventions that are different than discovering this, 10, 20, 30 years later?
Yeah. Well, number one, it's a lot easier to reverse or stop, right? So it's a lot easier to stop something from progressing when you don't have all this plaque in your artery and it's already kind of blocked in the first place. But if you want to go further upstream, the key is really to start understanding why that particular person has the cardiovascular disease in the first place. So is it, lifestyle? Yes. Diet, nutrition, exercise, all those things play a big role. Family history does. Absolutely. We look at your genetics, whether you're susceptible to it, but we also look at other things. We know toxins in our environment can also play a role. We know that our mouth microbiome, right? All of the bacteria and microorganisms that live in our mouth are strongly associated with cardiovascular disease.
Right.
We know that mitochondrial dysfunction, it's kind of the buzzword right now, but mitochondria, those are the little power plants of our cell. They take the food that we eat and they turn it into energy. when those aren't efficient, when they become a little bit dysfunctional, that's actually one of the first things that underlies cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's. So we want to look back then, and that kind of dysfunction again happens years and years before. So
Right.
if we have the ability to find it. Diabetes is a great example where
Right.
we start to get a little bit of insulin resistance, and our blood sugar starts to go a little higher, but it's still in normal range. Now, remember that normal range is not optimal range, first of all, right? So normal range is just what the bell curve of the population. And so that doesn't mean the worse or unhealthier our population gets, the unhealthier normal becomes essentially.
Right.
But that is still normal. And then it slowly goes up, and it takes maybe a decade or more, and your blood sugar gets a little higher. Then suddenly it hits that magic number. Boom, you've got diabetes. Now you've got a diagnosis of diabetes, and
Right.
people will go, I just caught diabetes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
It's been building. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I imagine it's also pretty, there's a mental health aspect to this too, right? I mean, and then there always is when you think about long-term illnesses and everything that you do in the medical space. But how do you guys approach when you sit down with someone and say, okay, look, we did all your sequencing, you did, and here, Lisa, guess what? I have some really big news for you. I mean, some of it is probably a relief that, okay, I have this knowledge, but it's also probably, I'm imagining
It's
that
scary.
It can be really
Yeah,
emotional
it's scary
and
to sit there and get all of your results. You're like a little nervous about it.
Probably why some people don't want to know, like I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some, like, I'm fine, I'm good, I don't need to know.
Right.
I'm all set.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think a lot of people do feel that way. And if there was nothing you can do about it, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Right. If it's like, I don't want to know because I can't do anything about it anyway, then fine. And maybe there's some genetic diseases like Huntington's that you might not want to know.
Right.
But there's everything that we're testing for here at Fountain Life, we can do something about. So is it, it's kind of like being the ostrich sticking your head in the sand. You can be stupid or you can actually, test and go, wow, it's awesome that I found this because now I can do something.
Exactly.
And now I can reverse
if you
it.
approach it like that, it's actually relieving. You're like, wow, okay, I can reverse this or prevent it.
Gives
So
you some power back.
Right, exactly. So no, it definitely kickstarted my husband into working out a little more for sure. No, but just seeing, and his results weren't bad, but it just, he was a little bit, more sedentary than I had been, and his results showed. And so it kind of kickstarted him back to working out and stuff. So I don't mean to brag or anything, but my liver was amazing. Like if there was a Sports Illustrated like liver issue, my liver would be on it. That's my brag. Sorry, not everything was perfect, but I had a really good liver, so
that's awesome.
I actually I am in awe of that because I know that my liver results will look very
Yours
different.
Is not going to be so stellar, Ashley. I can pretty
if
much.
I ever, wow, that was the one thing Lisa.
That was. I don't mean to brag, but I have the liver of a teenager who doesn't drink. So thank you.
That is so awesome. And we used to think that liver disease, right, fatty liver, was always from drinking, like you said.
But it's not.
Turns out we're seeing it like this was only recent, 20 years ago where we really realized it's like, wow, we're seeing all this liver disease, this fatty liver, and these people aren't drinking. What's going on? It's from, carbohydrates, right? It's from lifestyle.
Ding. Yep. Ed needs to cut back on the ice cream a little bit. Yeah, because he's not a big drinker, but he had a little, his liver wasn't as stellar as mine was.
Yeah, so, sugar tends to do that.
They're like, what's the difference here? I don't eat a vat of ice cream a night, so. We cut back. Yeah.
Well, and so I guess, and for both of you, because at least you've obviously done it, and now I'm sure have some different things that you're thinking about and looking at and doing differently. But what are the, I'm sure it ranges, but what are the different things in terms of like, hey, supplements, eating differently? I mean, what's the range of? There's probably a high end of like, you got to be real serious right now, and just sort of, hey, you got to think about your lifestyle a little bit differently. What's the?
Yeah. And we can sort of say how, severe you have to do it right away. Like, is this an emergency situation where maybe it's a pharmaceutical, maybe it's a drug to, potentially lower that cholesterol or some of the risk factors or stabilize that plaque. or, if your blood sugar is really high, to try to drive that down. So definitely that. Definitely supplements if we're finding certain nutrient deficiencies or other things to really help with that. But again, targeted. Taking
Yeah.
supplements without really
Without, no,
understanding
right.
why you're
Exactly.
taking them can be problematic. So
Yeah, I learned that I was shockingly, because I do take D, that I needed a little more D. And I thought, you have to take it with zinc. And they're like, you know what? No, because zinc throws off your copper, and everything's a balance. So they're like, cut back on the zinc, just because of the other stuff is getting imbalanced. So anyway, that was one thing I learned, and I thought that was fascinating. But
yeah, and it does need to
it
be in
was,
balance. And the only
yeah,
way to really know is to test,
to test.
right?
Exactly. That's what I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah. Just to
yeah.
see what's going
Yeah,
on. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And then, sometimes it obviously it's diet and nutrition and stress and
Right.
sleep and
Sleep. That was a big one
exercise,
too. Yeah.
right? So just one like half hour less of sleep a night can increase all your inflammatory markers.
And maybe not like, I don't know, like the 6-pack like Ashley has every night. Instead, maybe like
Yeah, get
cut
the
back a
wine
little.
coolers, give them a break. But I think it's so interesting because we go to our doctors and they tell us you need
Oh,
to sleep, don't drink too much, eat healthy, get your vegetables. Like we know all of these things, and yet I think until you have data that I could look at, I mean, I'm just thinking for myself personally, if someone were to show me and say, look, these are your numbers, this is where you are, and you need to really pay attention. You better bet I'd be a lot more serious about taking
Yeah.
certain vitamins, about not having that extra whatever it is. Like I think that is probably the magic of being able to look at the science and say, no, this isn't just your doctor telling you like, hey, these things are good for you. You'll feel better if you do this. Like this is your body needs you to do these
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. That's exactly what we see, right?
Right.
Is a lot of people know, like, I know I need to sleep, I know I need to exercise, I know I need to, but really, once you see it and once you see the effect on your body, the motivation is totally
Totally.
changes.
It
Yeah.
kickstart
Yeah,
my husband into running with me. It was like, no,
yeah,
it was, and I'd been telling him forever. I'm like, at least walk. I mean, I don't, and it's not even a look thing. It's not like, oh, you got to be hot. No, it's health wise. So, I mean, we're always like, come on, let's get a little, so it has
it
been
And get a little
awesome.
hotter, Ed. You could,
Yeah, Ed, do
get
you
a little
mind? I
hot.
want you. I want chiseled abs like you used to have. No, I don't care about that, but I just don't want you to die on me, buddy. Okay.
exactly.
Let's not do that. So no, he lost 10 pounds since he talked to Dr.
Wow.
Kingsbury. Yeah, he's been really getting after it. I
That's
know, I'm proud of
awesome.
him. So, but he needed to hear
Good.
that, just like you said, he needed, especially as a male, I hate saying that, but
Yes.
he needed to see the data and hear what he had to say. And he had some things that were like, it's so easy for him he has like whatever, it's like 100% muscle. Like there was some muscle thing that you guys test, and his muscle thing was off the chart. Like the doctor, I don't think he knew he was a football player previously. And he was like, wow, this is like really high, your muscle. So he has the ability to, get in
Wow.
better shape. And so that kind of also gave him a little pump too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But mixed with
absolutely.
some of the other things, he's like, okay, I gotta get to stepping. So he
Yeah,
has.
and then you want a follow-up test to see what you're doing if it's working, right?
Exactly.
So the
Right.
motivation is knowing that what you need to do is exactly what you need to do, not just kind
Right.
of a guess that might be for the general population. And
Right.
then when you do it, you retest and you go, wow,
Yeah.
yeah, and we're seeing plaque reverse. We're
Oh,
seeing
wow.
like weight loss, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
a lot. We're seeing diabetes reverse. We're seeing all of that is absolutely possible. So chronic disease is not written in stone. It's completely reversible.
Yeah.
And
Which is so
so,
amazing. And to me, that's just like such a simple thing to do. Like just go get tested and see where you are, and just jumpstart for your health. Because I mean, I'm not going to live forever, but I would like to feel really good as I age.
well,
I
you
want to,
look pretty good for 80 million years old.
yeah,
Exactly. And that's a clinical diagnosis of how good you look
right.
for 80 million,
80 million
Lisa.
years
So
old.
take that
Doing
to the
okay.
bank. Oh,
Oh,
I just have to imagine like you're the CSO and CMO of Fountain Life, and this thing is, you've really been at it for 2 years. You said you launched about. I mean, you should do a documentary on what it was like to start this and the process and everything you've been through, because I'm sure there's a million stories.
yeah.
But I imagine the things that keep you going is when you see like the outcomes, right? And you're able to help these patients. I mean, it is transformational. You're not just helping somebody feel better after they've been diagnosed with something that's going to alter their life. Like you're helping them fundamentally, and their children and their grandchildren and all of
Yeah.
those things. Like
My
really
mom lives in Miami,
amazing.
and she has a bunch of friends. She's 85, but she has all these friends that were having issues and whatnot. And I gave them the book. I gave them the book, the Tony Robbins book, and 3 of them have gone to the Naples facility, and it has changed their life. Her one friend had chronic back pain. And just a couple simple things. And he's like, oh, it's a miracle. It's like, it changed my life. And, and he's older and he can do a lot of the things he wasn't able to do. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he's happier. I don't know. I think it's so great. It's like the state of the art. I really do. I believe that it's.
Yeah, and we really have to do this. Really, our society can't wait for us not to do this.
Yeah.
With our aging population, we call it the silver tsunami, right? We know that the baby boomers are all now over 65, that this is going to be our healthcare system, the way we know it today, will be absolutely unsustainable. Our children who are growing up will not be able to support our generations, like the 50, 60 and older. Our whole society will collapse, right? We're going to have to make very difficult decisions on, rationing care, who gets this, who gets that. Not everybody will have it. So we have to do it now. And it's totally doable. And that's really what we really want to do at Fountain Life is move that needle and change that whole conversation of what we're having around healthcare to really, first of all, yes, maybe not 80 million, but we can live to 120 healthily without having that decline, right? Without that last 10 to 20 years of someone's life being, getting worse and worse and worse, and not being able to walk and not being able to tie your shoes or feed yourself. Like,
Remember,
that's not a way to live.
right?
And we can actually stop that and keep you healthy for as long as you live. So what we call extend not only your lifespan, but your health span.
Yeah.
That's really important. And really address those 4 leading causes of early death and disability, which we've talked about, right? Cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, neurocognitive disease, and cancer. If we can do that, then we can optimize everything else. Yeah.
Love it.
And I think the question I have, Dr. Messier, is I'm listening to you, and if I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go do this tomorrow. I think the reality is this isn't something that yet is covered by insurance, right? Like this is for the most part, I mean, it sounds like this is an investment. So can you kind of talk about sort of what who sort of has access to it, and in your mind, your dream for 5, 10, 20, whatever it is, years from now, what it looks like and who it's available to, and how we can make this really a part of our healthcare system instead of it just being this kind of one-off, these high-minded healthcare people who are like, hey guys, wake up, we got all this stuff right here that we're not using.
Yeah, that's a great question. So absolutely, right now it is an investment. It's an investment in your health. And, we make investments in all kinds of other things, our cars, our, fancy swimming pools, all of that, right? But, if you ask a healthy man, they have thousands of wishes and goals. If you ask a sick man or woman, they have only one.
Yeah.
Right. And our health, if we don't have our health, we don't have anything. And that's all we want is to get better. So yes, it is an investment right now. The ultimate goal is to democratize this, right? We are collecting a huge, we talked about the data driven, we're collecting an enormous data set right now, a very, comprehensive data set, including blood work and all the CT scan and the MRI, all of that. Our ultimate goal is to pare down that data. We're going to find the most predictive biomarkers that eventually, you ask 5, 10 years from now, this will all be available in a tube of blood. And This will be available for everybody. But it takes the people that can afford it now to do that so that everybody else can. And I liken that to the cell phone. Some of you listeners, if you remember when the first cell phones came out, there was these big clunky boxes.
Oh, yeah.
They cost a ton of money. They were a fortune, but people bought them, right? And it's only because people bought them, those first adopters, that we now have, these cell phones today. Right.
Such an interesting analogy. I hadn't thought about that, but of course, yeah.
So not only you're investing in yourself, you're investing in the future
and the data
for everybody else too.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
Well-
I have one. Go ahead, Lisa. But I feel like you need to, because I've hijacked this conversation, and you have a really amazing.
I have amazing
connection to
news,
it.
but you may be depressed after hearing this. But it's it makes me feel like I might be smart one day. We are about to be related. I don't know if you knew this, but my son.
She's looking at you like,
He's
what?
like, wait, what? Wait, I want to get the DNA testing. I'm not related to that idiot.
I gotta look at your results.
It's like, wait a
before
minute.
we-
Yeah. She's not, she's kind of annoying and she sounds like she smokes.
She has no idea what any medical terms are.
Okay. My oldest son yesterday just got engaged to Kathleen Messier, which is your last name, Helen Messier, who is, okay, so I found out because I saw your name and I'm like, oh, no way they'll relate. I didn't even look it up. And then I read your bio and I realized you're from Canada. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. So I asked Kathleen, my son Max's fiance, as of yesterday, if she knew.
By the way,
yay.
congrats.
Yeah.
This is hot off the press.
It will be announced tomorrow,
Yeah.
and we'll drop this podcast tomorrow night. So it's all good. We're all good. Anyway, I found out from her mom, Jen Messier, who's that you are her first cousin's wife. Do you know that?
I do. That
Yes.
is amazing.
How funny is that? What a
Jen
small
and
world. And you know Kathleen. Oh my gosh, isn't it? Well,
I know.
my mind was blown. I'm like, I want to tell you this.
Oh
so
my
bad.
gosh, what a small world.
I know, isn't it crazy? Yes. And also you are of your last name is Messier. Mark Messier you're related to him, the famous hockey player, as that's Kathleen's uncle.
Uncle. And that's
Just as a reference for the sports
right.
fans.
And
So
it's by married. My husband's Mark Messier is my husband's cousin. So their dads were brothers. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's her mom, Kathleen's
Jennifer's
mom
dad
is
and my husband's
Jennifer's.
dad were brothers. Yeah.
I'm so
Isn't that
glad we
funny?
validated this, because when Lisa texted me yesterday and she was like, I think Dr. Messier is Kath's mom's cousin. And I'm like, dude, you are such a name dropper.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know
being a
everybody.
claimer.
Stop. Like,
I just want to
okay.
be related to somebody super smart. That's it.
I was dying laughing. So it's real. Okay, good.
By
Way
the
to go.
transitive
Family.
And you too, I guess. Yeah. But anyway, by the transitive property, can I be smart too then? And have wow.
I think so. I think that's how it works.
I love it. So thank you for welcoming me into the family.
What a small world, though,
Yeah,
truly.
how
That's an
crazy is that?
amazing
I
connection.
love it. I heard from Kathleen's mom, Jennifer, she goes, I don't know Helen very well, but all I know is that everybody in the family is incredibly proud of her because she is exceptionally smart. Over the top smart. Everyone's in awe. They're all hockey players in the hockey world. And they're and then we have this bright light, this amazing, beautiful doctor. Wow.
Oh, small world. I love it. I love it. Well, you've been so generous with your time, and we don't want to keep you any later, but I would love if you, maybe two last things, high level, beyond just the work, thinking about what you've done in your career and how you've looked at things and how you haven't just, and I really applaud you for it. My dad and my stepmom worked as, they were in the medical consulting world for a long time, and their mission was always to get people to look at things we treat the symptoms and not actually the patient. And there were all these different things around the patient experience. So I've been kind of exposed to that line of thinking my whole life through their work. And I think it's really hard to, in the medical world or any industry, to go against the grain and say hey, what are we missing here? We're not thinking big enough. We could be thinking way bigger. So I applaud you endlessly for the work you're doing and think it's amazing. Is there anything from that we haven't talked about from a big picture, yes, if you can do this, go get it done, and hopefully it'll be available to everybody at some point soon. But from a health and wellness standpoint, to people who are listening to this podcast that say I know I want to be healthier, I know I want to do better, do you have any advice about kind of some tangible one or two things that might be helpful that you wish
Ashley
you could
wants
tell
to
everybody?
take a magic pill that makes her healthy.
Yeah, do you have one of those?
Yeah, that's a great. I wish I do. The magic pills exercise.
Yeah,
Nice.
We hear it all the time, right?
I believe that so much.
I think really, and again, the age of the listeners, if you have children, it matters what you do now, right? We tend to think that, that's I don't have to worry about that until I'm in my 50s and 60s, right? But what you do now is going to determine what you're like in your 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And so, it's not about scaring, it's not about, but it does matter. And so just being aware, and the little things matter. You don't have to totally change your whole lifestyle. You don't have to totally, but just become aware, right? Eat one more vegetable. Eat, like just go for a
Walk one
walk.
more mile. Yeah.
One more, not even a mile, just 10
Right.
minutes,
Exactly.
right? Just, but become aware. Like if you can get a continuous glucose monitor and stick that on and see what happens to your blood sugar when you're stressed, right? I had
Right.
a patient who, was wearing one of the continuous glucose monitors, and he texted me, he's like, my blood sugar just went way up. And I didn't eat anything, but I was playing video games. And so
Oh, wow.
things like that actually affect.
That was Ed. That was Ed. No, kidding. It wasn't.
Did Ed have to sign like some HIPAA document for you to be able to talk about all this on your
I know.
podcast?
I didn't even ask him. I'm like, oops, cat's out of the bag. All right.
But that I think is really important, because sometimes you just feel like, I mean, it always seems like, to get into shape or to start doing this, but to just try and make it habits and start small.
Start small. That book, Tiny
Great.
Habits, great book. Just make little changes, and the little changes add up.
Amazing.
Love it.
Oh, all right. Well, I hope we get to hang out in person at some point.
Well, we will, since we're family.
I was going to say, next family barbecue, please invite me. Congratulations to both of you, by the way, on becoming new family members. That was just the ultimate, like the timing of all of this was
literally, and
poetic.
It literally was yesterday they got engaged.
I
yesterday.
know, that's why it was
crazy. So
that's so great. All right, thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for making the time for this. And if people want to find out more about what you're doing, where can you direct them?
Yeah, go to our website, www.fountainlife.com. And we have everything on there. Give us a call. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
And I have to say, you guys, when I went in, it was such an easy day. It was so enjoyable. The people there, the nurse practitioners couldn't have been nicer. They put us in these cute outfits, which I kind of wanted to keep because they looked like scrubs and made me think I could pose as a doctor in the grocery store.
With your hot liver.
With my really good looking
centerfold.
But then and we went through all these tests because you weren't allowed to eat in the morning. But then after we did the testing, where you weren't supposed to eat, after we did it, they had like a full lunch that we ordered. It was nice. A really pleasant experience. Nothing hurt during these. I mean, they did take a little blood, but come on, calm down. The results are worth it. What you learn from it is worth removing a little blood. But like a bone density test, there was nothing, some MRIs, super easy. It was, and the results are just magical. I mean, the modern technology and modern science use it. It's there. Let's use it. Let's make people feel better and feel good. So I think that's really important. So.
Well, Lisa, thank you for making this happen, because I didn't know anything about it, and now you've sent me that book, and I'm all in.
Yeah.
And Dr. Messier, this is I hope not the last time that we get to connect, but good luck with everything.
Thank you. Such fun.
Informational work. Yeah, it was a blast to hang out with you, and we'll be in touch soon. We'll link to all of everything that Dr. Messier mentioned. We'll put in the notes of the episode. And thanks as always, our first health and wellness bonus episode.
I love it. Take care of yourselves out there.
Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.